Joe Biden, remember that guy? He's still president. Well, it turns out he's still wildly unpopular. By polling data, only 2 in 10 Americans approve of Joe Biden pardoning his son, Hunter. And that is a terrible number. That number, by the way, includes only 38% of Democrats. Only 38% of Democrats approve of the Hunter Biden pardon, which is kind of amazing. Joe Biden is leaving in infamy. He should be leaving in infamy. About 6 in 10 white adults disapprove of the pardon, compared with slightly less than half of Hispanic adults and 3 in 10 black adults. Relatively large shares of black and Hispanic Americans, about 3 in 10, were neutral, however. So, again, Joe Biden humiliating himself as per his usual arrangement. Meanwhile, Bill Clinton is almost begging for a pardon for Hillary Clinton. He is still afraid that perhaps the DOJ will be unleashed on his wife, titular wife, over her mishandling of classified materials. Here was Bill Clinton yesterday saying it's a phony story, those deleted emails. It wasn't, by the way.
Do you think it would be wise of President Biden to preemptively pardon any potential targets? What about your wife, Hillary Clinton? She apparently is on Kash Patel's list.
For what?
Yeah.
Well, they got a problem with her because first, she didn't do anything wrong.
Of course.
Second, she followed the rules exactly as they were written. Mm-hmm. Third, Trump's State Department found, you remember how the emails were such a big issue in 2016? Yeah. Trump's State Department found that Hillary sent and received exactly 0 classified emails on her personal device. Mm-hmm. It was a made-up, phony story.
Yeah.
So, I guess if Kash Patel is determined to make one up, he could do it.
And then Bill Clinton goes on to say, well, maybe we should talk a preemptive pardon for Hillary. Hell, why not? I mean, if you're talking about people who corrupted the pardon process, Bill Clinton was first on that list.
If President Biden wanted to talk to me about that, I would talk to him about it, but I don't think I should be giving public advice on the pardon power. I think it's a very personal thing.
The pardon power is a personal thing, according to Bill Clinton. Oh, a lot of things were personal things when Bill Clinton was president. Okay, meanwhile, in other good news for Republicans and for the country in general, according to Corey Liu, the adjunct professor at the University of Texas School of Law, the Fifth Circuit has now held that the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, acted unlawfully in approving a NASDAQ policy that forced corporate boards to implement an identity-based diversity quota looking at race, sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity, or to provide a written explanation for why they failed to meet the quota. This is like a real thing the SEC attempted to do. They approved a NASDAQ policy that said that if you wish to be listed on the NASDAQ, you had to put forward a statement explaining why you didn't have more gay with people and women on your board, or some such nonsense. So the Fifth Circuit said that that is a violation of the law. They suggested that this idea of a diversity mandate coming from the SEC is a joke, as it absolutely is. Again, DEI is about to die a horrifying death, a well-deserved horrifying death under President Trump. And guess what? The American people are ready for it. There's a brand new poll out from Manhattan Institute, and it asks a simple question with regard to questions of quote-unquote racial equity. Which approach do you prefer for addressing racial inequality? Approach 1. We should focus on creating a race-conscious society to repair the harms of the past by developing policies that benefit marginalized groups. Or, option 2. We should focus on creating a colorblind society where everyone is treated equally regardless of the color of their skin. And so option 1 would be sort of the Black Lives Matter, Ibram X. Kendi idea that everybody should be super racially conscious and that we should redistribute outcomes based on race. And number 2 is the MLK prospect, that we should treat everybody individually without reference to skin color. 68% of Americans believe in colorblindness. Only 21% of Americans actually believe in the Ibram X. Kendi version of society. By the way, among black voters, 50% agree with the MLK proposal, just 37% agree with the woke proposal. Even among Democrats in general, 56% believe in the race-blind proposition. 36% believe on creating a race-conscious society to repair the harms of the past by developing policies that benefit marginalized groups. It just demonstrates the vast gap between the Democratic elites and the rest of the country, including their own Democratic base. Pretty amazing stuff. We'll get to more on this in a moment. First, as social unrest escalates and crime rates climb, securing the safety of our families is more crucial than ever. Now, as you know, I love the Second Amendment. I own a bunch of guns. But the thought of using lethal force, not ideal for everyone. This is just one reason you need to check out Byrna. It's very important to be able to protect your family, obviously. But it's just as important in many situations to do it as safely as possible, introducing the Byrna Ungun, the non-lethal self-defense platform. Lightweight, simple to use, it uses an easy-to-load 5-round magazine. It's powered by an 8-gram CO2 cartridge. Byrna launchers fire a 68 caliber chemical-filled projectile using patented pull-pierce technology, where the CO2 canister is only punctured on the first trigger pull, meaning your launcher is always at the ready. It's capable of incapacitating an attacker for over 30 minutes. It's accurate and effective at over 60 feet. It requires no permits, no background checks. It's interstate travel friendly. With Byrna, you will be prepared to defend. The Byrna is a safer, more sensible alternative that could potentially save lives on both sides, protecting both user and aggressor. Thank you to Byrna for sponsoring this video. If you haven't yet, head on over to last week's episode of Ben After Dark on Daily Wire Plus, brought to you by Byrna. Again, the left has fundamentally misunderstood the American people. They fundamentally misunderstand them. And the American people are done with this trash. They are done with it. They are done with DEI. They are done with wokeness. They are done with the idea that boys can be girls. They are done with the basic idea that we are not allowed to live by traditional morality or believe traditionally moral things. They're just done. The American public have had enough of it. They were promised that if they kept feeding the alligator slowly, eventually the alligator would give up. And it turned out the American people kept feeding the alligator, and then the alligator took a foot, and then a leg, and then a torso. And now they're done. They're finished with all of this. The sea change is coming, and not a moment too soon. Not a moment. Now, it's not going to go without a little bit of violence, obviously. Just another indicator of where we stand in the country. 2 days ago, an Illinois man allegedly attacked South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace on the U.S. Capitol grounds over her views on trans-identifying men in women's spaces, according to Mace. His Daily Wire reporting, quote, "I was physically accosted tonight on Capitol grounds over my fight to protect women. Capitol Police have arrested him. All the violence and threats keep proving our point. Women deserve to be safe. Your threats will not stop my fight for women." She ended up wearing a sling into Congress. Apparently, the Capitol Police told the Daily Wire they arrested a person accused of assaulting her on Tuesday evening. That person was a 33-year-old trans rights advocate. Apparently, this person reportedly went through security screening before entering the congressional buildings where the incident occurred. Well, meanwhile, President Trump has basically proposed that we annex Canada, and I feel like they will greet us as liberators at this point because Justin Trudeau is just absolutely the worst. So Justin Trudeau spent the day yesterday bashing Americans for not electing women. I'd like to point out at this point that Canada, I believe, had one female prime minister who lasted something like 6 months, unless you count Justin Trudeau, who may, in fact, identify as a woman at this point. This man is so unbelievably stupid, and also probably Fidel Castro's kid. And a lot of people are angry at me because I don't believe in enough conspiracy theories. That's my favorite one. So I'm just going to put it out there that he's Fidel Castro's kid. Whether it's true or not, it's hilarious. Anyway, here's Justin Trudeau bashing Americans for not electing Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris. I'd almost forgotten Kamala Harris's name. That's how quickly she passed from the national consciousness. It's amazing. Here was Justin Trudeau yesterday.
It shouldn't be that way. It wasn't supposed to be that way. We were supposed to be on a steady, if difficult sometimes, march towards progress. And yet, just a few weeks ago, the United States voted for a second time to not elect its first woman president. Everywhere, women's rights and women's progress is under attack, overtly and subtly. But I want you to know that I am, and always will be, a proud feminist. You will always have an ally in me and in my government.
Man, we will be greeted as liberators. I want the tearing down of the Justin Trudeau statues. They'll be flying American flags. Donald Trump will roll in there with like 3 of his boys and just take over all of Canada. If this is the quality of man that Canada has decided to make the prime minister, my goodness, Pierre Poilievre can't come fast enough. That is for damned sure. Are you tired of the lies and the twists of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.